Okay, I guess it's for some reason it's not playing my intro on this one. Whatever, it doesn't matter. What's going on, everybody? It's late as fuck. Coming to you live, late as hell, at this very moment for a specific ass actual reason. 1 second. Let me check this message out. It's an account called Hello, little Persian. You know, if that's really you, Fusion, that's a weird thing to do to pretend to be a character that's actually meant to degrade you. I mean, you might think he looks cool, but I mean, the dude's literally made to look like he's got some type of fucking dwarf syndrome or something. Like he's so fucking short, he's practically getting pushed around in a stroller and shit. And why he chose to cover up your face when we know exactly what your face looks like, that's another weird one I'll never get past. Maybe he just couldn't get the AI software to look anywhere near close or good enough that he thought that he'd just rather do that because you technically, kind of hide behind the smiley face avatar to hide your real face. But if that were to be you, just know I don't sanction it and I'm not cool with it. And it's weird if it I'm not saying it is you or coming at you or nothing, but I'm just saying if it were to be in actuality, I mean, the whole sniping and talking shit about me and stuff is kind of a weird thing to be doing while also infiltrating and pretending to be somebody who, for the most purposes, hell, I've given a wrench and let hang around and stuff just for the funny aspect of it at first. But I mean, you know, but that would be crazy if it was Fusion because I mean, then like the only one thing I would have to say is like, why do you feel the need to want to you have to hate me then if you can technically stand being over here and around me and interacting with me essentially and listening to me? Like how does that work? Because I promise you, if I didn't like somebody, like I might sometimes cover them and put up with watching them, but being in their chat, like unless I had the goal to just infiltrate to get certain people out of there by pointing them to certain things, like with Jim Terry, for instance, I would point to them for him saying the N word and saying this shit to this about this woman, saying, like, who would diddle you? That was his exact words, quote unquote. That was Jim Terry's words. So do not take that out of context trying to say I said that. Like, that's exactly what Jim Terry said that I heard. And I can find it and play it for you. Like, that would be the only reason why I would ever end up trying to infiltrate his chat or whatever shortly. And sooner or later, I'm going to fucking bust out in there and tell him exactly what I think and tell him fuck off and get myself banned anyway. So it don't even matter. Like I'm never gonna be able to be in there for a regular extended period of time and like interact with him like a normal human being. I just couldn't. Like if I dislike somebody strongly or whatever, like I'm not gonna do that. I can't. Like I'm not gonna. Like I'm not even gonna try to put myself through to doing that unless there was some. Unless by doing that for some specific reason or cause or evidence gathering that would like cause the person to face righteous justice. In that situation, I'd do whatever I was asked. Even if I had to spend a week with the fucking person, I would hate that fucking week. But if I knew by the end of that week that we was going to get his ass locked up for good and prosecuted to the point where he'll either accept a long ass plea deal or he will take it to court and take his chances for even more time, I could get behind that. I would fucking hate it. It wouldn't be easy, but I mean, I would do it. Like if I had to just pretend to be a confidant or like friend, sort of like a loose type of friend for somebody to talk to about the fucked up things they do regularly because they somehow falsely believe that, I'm whatever, then I would do that to get that person brought to justice. Or if they were suspected somebody was a serial killer, uh, and I somehow was given stuff by the authorities which could almost fool another person to believing, well, yeah, so am I. Like some type of weird uh, trophy that's been replicated from a real trophy found from a serial killer or something. Something that would fool someone into believing I've killed too. Like if I had that, just so I could fool somebody into thinking I'm that we suspected was that, to get him to talk about his stuff with me, thinking he's got somebody else that he can talk to that's the same. I mean, that would be a very dangerous fucking situation to be getting into. But I mean, if they need you to do it, I would do it. Like, cause see, I know I have the acting energy. Uh, it's a part of the dominant energy that I've got 4 times in my name, 4 vibrations of it. And anytime you have 3 or more specific spiritual energy vibrations in a person's name's makeup, uh, they basically have an emphasis of those type of character traits and an emphasis of those abilities, basically more pronounced. That's why people that got 3 1s, which could be the letter A, 3 A's, or 3 letter S's, they are strong leaders, you know. And even their learning style is learning through leadership. And you have somebody like me, though, I've learned through experience, meaning I've got a lot of times experience the thing or whatever it is firsthand without any knowledge or insight into it, so that by going through it the fucked up way the first time, I can reflect back on it and see different things that happened and realize what I need to do to counter those things or to stop them before they get to the point of, well, whatever the case is. It's just a metaphor for, that's how I have to learn, is by going through things first and experiencing them, and then through experience I can learn from that experience and figure out exactly the ins and outs of it. And that's exactly how it's worked. I mean, even when I would get magic tricks or different things, like kits or different other types of stuff in the mail that required assembly or basically a period of learning different things about it, it's not that I never picked up the manual, but I never picked it up first. Like I would always try to get into things without reading about it or what, you know. Eventually, of course, you know, I might hit a snag or I might just get to a point naturally where I can't figure out what to do the next thing. Like it's not obvious, like I'm stuck. And then I might get into it. But that's just how I've always like been naturally inclined to doing the stuff. Now, see, in school, I had to kind of learn differently. Like, I had to incorporate the way I learned, but I had to do it with the way that I would look at it as. I remember I used to as you know, this book that I'm reading, no matter what type of book it was or kind of book, if it was like a story type of book from English class, like A Midsummer's Night's Dream, we had to read it one summer. We also read Tom Sawyer and did reports on both of those. Me and Tyler had to do a project on Hitler. That's how I know so much about Hitler, is because me and Tyler had to actually do a PowerPoint. Like I went over to his house and, you know, I basically, most of the PowerPoint put together was for me, and then he organized it and picked different themes for it and pictures. That was his job part, and then he printed it. And besides that, though, all the research, a lot of it came from me, and then he got some of his research from uh, a couple of different books that his mother specifically had picked up, and then also from stuff online. Um, we knew we technically couldn't use Wikipedia in it, you know, because the teachers would always tell us Wikipedia can be inaccurate sometimes, and so what we did, though, we knew that on the Wikipedia page it had sources for a lot of the stuff. So we would look at those sources. We would make sure that those sources was the same thing that we had, you know, kind of had pretty much read and accepted on Wikipedia. And if it was, we would still use that stuff from Wikipedia. We just wouldn't use it from or put the source, you know, as Wikipedia. Obviously, we would use the other source that it came from that was listed on Wikipedia. And none of the stuff we found, any of it seemed to be an inaccuracy or not sourced. Like we didn't go to any sources that were broken or anything. So, but I understand that it's not like that with every single subject, person, event, or whatever's on Wikipedia. And that's why teachers did that, was to, you know, make sure to protect us. And well, some of them straight up had a bias for it. They just did not like Wikipedia. And we learned all about Hitler, and you know, I pretty much went over the day that he died, and I told him, I said, you know, the rest of the people in class and teacher, I said, Hitler at this point had a very obvious sign, what doctors and historians now think and believe to be, which is Parkinson's, because he was shaking with one of his hands so excessively and noticeably that, you know, there was no hiding it at this point. I said his physician Theodore Morel had him on a cocktail of pills, laxatives. He had severe gas and stomach issues from his diet. He consumed an only vegetarian diet, mostly of vegetables, rice, and different things of that nature. And I said, and this stuff combined with whatever else he ate, I said, he had a horrible flat, you know. And so Hitler was given a bunch of damn pills for gas, as well as pills to, I think one of his other issues was not occasional, but like, what's the word? Frequent, occasional constipation. So every other now and then he would have to take a series of laxatives, and that combined with all the other medicine he had him on, the stuff for energy, which was essentially freaking amphetamines. Um, he also had him on some painkillers, like such the earlier precursors of morphine, and there might have been a different other type of medication, but I can't think of it, that was also a painkiller. He would have him on those injections. He would also give him certain vitamins injected daily, like, for anything that the doctor felt that his diet was inferior when it came to getting a lot of vitamins and minerals. And so Hitler asked him, well, can you supplement, and he said, well, of course I can. He said, it's not really, usual. He said, but technically in theory you could do that. And so that's what he did for him. He injected him with an array of different of the vitamins that he thought might be lacking from his vegetarian diet of no meat. You think of like people that like Hitler's regarded as this evil mastermind, megalomaniac, but I mean the guy was on a vegetarian diet. Like he had somehow, even though he viewed Jews as pretty much like cockroaches, like something that needs to be exterminated, for somehow when it came to like eating meat and stuff, like he had a reverence for animals and believed that vegetarianism was a higher way to live spiritually and physically. um that man really didn't need to eat animals with the way technology had advanced at that time. And man, that's just how he believed. He didn't think that cooked food was bad or anything like that, like I've shared from the doctor mentor friend of mine. But he did believe that vegetarianism was like, I mean, just like most people regard people who are vegans or vegetarians as being annoying, he was basically one of those annoying, like he would sometimes make quips and critiques on people for their diet and let them know that he eats how he eats because it is superior, just like all his other nonsense and bullshit about being superior because he, has eradicated Zionism and Judaism from Germany and, all that other shit that he believes why Germans are superior. You got to understand that was a common theme of attitude for Hitler on everything. Blonde haired, blue eyed children, boys and girls are, top of the fucking food chain as far as genetic superiority, basically, aka eugenics. Thinking that he can create some master race. I never understood that shit either, considering, like, he had, there was this woman that would later go on to, I believe, date and probably hook up with JFK. I forget her name, but it was a German type name. I think she was a German heritage. Anyways, she accompanied Hitler to like the the Olympic Games that he had went to, because one of the years they had the Olympic Games, just right not too long before Germany decided to launch World War II. I mean, they had them at Germany, and Hitler described this woman as like the perfect example of Nordic beauty, basically. You know, and I think she had blonde hair and shit. But it just goes to show you that, like, you know, I mean, people will come up with some weird ideologies and fascinations. Um, how he even brainwashed himself to think that, because you want to know the truth, like us white people, you know, the ones of us that are mostly European, and I know a lot of people are told, and because it's the same, you know why it's familiar? Because the exact same thing I heard in my family. Oh, great grandma or your Mimi was, you know, half Indian and her mother was full, da 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 da. Okay, well, go and get a DNA test. And I'm not saying 23andMe could have fucked my stuff up. I just don't think that the margin of error would be so extreme to where they would miss a complete race entirely in my genetics. I don't. Um, but, you know, I'm thinking of, I think there's supposed to be a more advanced one or something out there. I'm going to look for it. I forget what it's called. If anybody has an idea, please put it down in the comments below. Because I'd like to be for certain, but according to what I initially got, I've got no native in me whatsoever. Now, I've got 30% French and German. I've got about 90 something percent, or not 90, I'm sorry. Got about, because with that 30%, it's like around 70 some odd percent French and German, or not French and German, freaking Northwestern European, it says. I think it's something like that. I may have the numbers completely wrong, but it's like I've got a majority of Northwestern European, and then I've got a portion of French and German heritage and blood, as well as Scottish and Irish blood, and a part of that Northwestern. And in that Northwestern part of it is a little bit of British, just a little bit. I think around like 10 to 11%. I've got literally fucking one. This is fucking funny, but 1%, 1% of me, just one old little percent, is Coptic, Coptic. Yeah, I didn't know, never hear it before either, but Coptic, and then the second word is Egyptian, which technically is supposed to have been a sect of Egyptians that were Christians, or put it this way, a denomination relating to and derived of Christianity, put it that way. I'm not going to say that they were fucking Methodist or Baptist or anything that we know as Christians, denominations and Christian religions today, but they definitely were Christian. Sorry, I fell out. But anyways, I'll check comments in just a second. I can't even see them right now if I wanted, because I've got something running that I've got to keep an eye on in front of the stage and stuff. Okay, so anywho, like I said, they were Christian and they were Egyptian. So that's neat. I wish it was more than a percent, which that makes me wonder if the more advanced stuff might say it's a little bit more than a percent. I feel like it should be more because I've always had some weird ass fucking connection and fondness and interest, desire to explore and look more into. Like when I was 5 years old, I had a special, specific type of Egyptian figure that was like, you know, almost like off of the pyramid like a hieroglyph, uh, like a Thoth or something type character with, like ancient armor and stuff. But anywho, like I had that and some accessories with it, and like it was something that like I always wanted to have around. It was like my favorite toy at that time, and I remember then having dreams about that stuff. And then later on, of course, I come across a series that my cousins are watching. I haven't heard of, hadn't run across yet, or even seen, and it's originally a Japanese series, but now they've adopted it for United States English. And I'm sitting here watching the first episode, and it's called Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And lo and behold, not too far getting into the first episode with my cousins, like Grandpa brings out a fucking box that has all the telltale signs of coming from Egypt. It's gold, and oldish looking, has certain hieroglyphic style designs on the box, like this triangle shape um, with an eye, and then an ankh on one other side and other stuff. And then of course, you see on one of them, it looks like there's a monster or something, like a dragon of some type. And when he opens it up, what is it? It's a deck of playing cards, of course, and also, of course, lo and behold, you find out later, all 5 cards of Exodia, the Forbidden One, which basically was, see, there's 3 God cards, and people think that, they're the strongest cards there are. And that's true to an extent. However, unless you had 2 of them maybe out at the same time, Exodia is going to beat one of them at a time every time. Now, 2 of them at one or 3 of them at Exodia, they might win. One of them's definitely going to die or go down, though. However, of course, he doesn't explain that, or I think he does. Maybe does end up explaining that, but basically, what happened was Exodia, back in the old days, in the cartoon version, the history is that the pharaohs and people in Egypt played a dueling game, almost kind of like in the Wild West when people dueled with pistols. Well, in ancient Egypt, they dueled, and they dueled with these stone tablets at the time. That's what they used. And on these stone tablets would be certain imaginative depictions of these creatures and monsters, servants, mages, and sages. And they would have their own stats and whatnot, and properties, and with certain spells and stuff, from people chanting and the people watching in the crowd giving energy to it, it basically allowed them to summon and cause these monsters of battle in real life, and for people to spectate. And a lot of the times, some of the duels would be like life or death. You lose, not only does your monster get destroyed, but you either, you know, um, lose and die as a result of some agreement, or if you're playing like a shadow game, like if it's a shadow game, you not only die, but you lose your soul in the process too. Yeah. But in the regular games, just the monsters would die and stuff, and you would either lose and not win any prizes, or worse, you might have to forfeit up your strongest, most rarest card in your deck as a result of losing to the winner. And, That would usually be the penalty for losing most games that are not super high stakes. Is you got to give up a card, your most powerful card you had used, and so when I got into this first episode with them, and I saw basically how it ended up ending, like later on when um, he finally goes to a Duelist Island because essentially he got a video in the mail because come to find out these pieces like the necklace Yu-Gi-Oh is wearing, which is a triangle necklace, upside down triangle that was in many different pieces when he got it in that golden Egyptian style box that his grandpa kept the cards in. It basically housed another spirit of an ancient pharaoh from long ago that used to play in those games and understands a lot about it. And it's like an alter ego of Yugi's, basically. And they share, both share the same mind. And essentially, it turns out to be like a good spirit, you know. Whereas now there's another character named Bakura that has the Millennium Ring, which is another Egyptian artifact that he wears around like a necklace, kind of like Yugi's, but it has a dark spirit attached to it. And, really could give a shit less about the actual Bakura, but it's very powerful enough that it's able to overtake him and switch back and allow Bakura to be himself at a moment's notice so people don't recognize that he's, actually still there in control. And he essentially has one goal, which is to become more powerful by acquiring as many Millennium items as he can. He wants to get Yugi's. He wants to get Pegasus's. He wants to get all of them because all of them combined together could bring a lot of things from the shadow realm into the actual physical realm. And I mean, somebody could almost like launch or start, he could almost like start a freaking massacre or war and change the world as people know it by bringing some of that stuff into the actual physical realm to use it to try to establish control and dominance over the earth or whatever freaking reason he'd want to do it. So essentially, Yugi ends up dueling with Pegasus because he has no choice. When he puts that tape in to the TV, Pegasus has kind of like made it to where when he recorded the tape, he recorded it by using his magical Millennium Eye to somehow slow down time and stop it to where it's just him and then Yugi, and they actually have to play a game, and or he won't really, like, he has their souls kind of like held in limbo, and he plays him. He ends up beating him, and he tells him he does pretty all right, but he basically says that we'll see again what you're made of. And he said, no, you're not going to see me ever again. He said, oh, I think you'll be more than necessary to oblige coming because otherwise you won't, you're not going to see your grandfather again. And so he takes his grandfather's soul and he imprisons it into an empty playing card. And he simply lets the other ones back go that he was holding in limbo too. And, his grandfather's body just goes into like a coma-like state. So then he has to go over there and then he has to fucking battle. And then when he battles and he gets to the end, like Pegasus can't believe he's been beaten, but he's a man of his word. And so he goes and he releases his grandfather's soul, as well as Kaiba's soul and Kaiba's brother's soul that he also imprisoned. And he started talking to this portrait of his dead lover that he was going to marry. And he said, I was trying to do all of this for you. My attempt to take over the Kaiba Corporation and to get the Millennium items from Yu-Gi-Oh! Was all in an attempt to bring you back mind, body, and soul. And Bakura comes upon him and he says, how sweet. And he said, because he had ended up facing Bakura when they were trespassing around his castle. But Bakura ended up wiping all their memories that were there. Joey, all the other friends of Yugi. So nobody remembered that they were there except Bakura. But then Pegasus finally remembered when Bakura shows up. And Bakura challenges him to a shadow game to win his Millennium Ring since he lost out on not winning Yugi's. And he plays this little card trick game, which he should have realized there'd be some trick to it, but it basically looked at his past, present, and future, and he judged it according to each card. And then him and Pegasus fought against each other with their Millennium items, and he overpowers him and causes him to get slammed up against the wall, and he tells him, you've been defeated. He said a rank amateur to somebody who's played for centuries. And he's like, you've lived for centuries? What kind of creature are you? And he's like, somebody that intends to have all the Millennium items. And he said, you've lost the game, and that entitles me to take your Millennium item the same way you meant to take Yugi's. And so he fucking then takes the fucking Millennium Eye right out of his eye socket. And surprisingly, though, he survives. Pegasus does. He gets carried away downstairs by all his fucking security and shit that was nowhere around when he was being fucking assaulted and bullied into playing a game to forfeit his and so he gets carried away, and they're like, well, what about the souls of my grandpa and stuff? He promised. And dude's like, not my department. But they end up going up there and checking his castle room, and they find out that the playing cards are empty, so they realize that he kept his word and he released their souls. But then this other guy pops up who's fucking from ancient fucking I don't even think he's from the fucking current time period. No, he's not. But he's a protector of the Millennium items named Shoddy. And right after everybody leaves the fucking castle room where Pegasus dueled Bakura and lost his fucking eye, Shoddy freaking comes up from the damn, whatchamacallit, stairs and pops up and he says, my investigation has led me here. And he said, what? And he's talking to himself and he's like, wait a second. He's like, I sense two spirits within this person. And of course he's talking about Yugi. He's like, I sense two spirits, two minds, with one of them not wanting me to know much about them in this person. And they have a Millennium item. He said I should begin my investigation here. And Yugi's like, what are you doing? Stay back. And he's like, whoever took Pegasus's Millennium Eye, most people that are known to have one Millennium item are known to want to acquire them all. And he's like, stay away from me. And all of a sudden, he puts this key up to his head, and he's like, my Millennium Key will unlock his minds. And he turns it, and Yugi like freezes up, and he gets into his mind, and he figures out that there's two doors. And he said, I've never seen a mind with two doors. He's like, one of them suggests, and I sense the innocence of a childlike soul, somebody pure of heart, no sin, and nothing but pure desires. And the other one, I sense a mysterious soul that does not advertise much about itself. And so he ends up going to the right, the one that's mysterious, and trying to go into that. And that's basically the soul of the Millennium puzzle. And he tries to go through a couple of doors, and there's like traps and stuff. And finally, he runs into him, and he's like, "Why have you intruded upon my mind?" He's like, "I demand answers." He said, "I'm here investigating a thief, somebody who has stolen a Millennium item." And he's like, "And you think that's me?" He said, "Well," he said, "most people don't have most people don't have defenses so thoroughly in their minds unless they're trying to hide something." And he said, "I enjoy my privacy." And he said, "Plus, he said, I have a long and complicated past too." He said, "Not that it's much anybody's business." He said, "But I am not your thief." And so he said he was going to let him look around, but he almost fell off into a trap. And he said, "If I fall down into this dark hole," he said, "I might never get out." He said, and Yu-Gi-Oh, the boy, ends up coming out of nowhere and pulls him up. He said, "I don't know why my spirit is trying to hurt you, but I won't let him." And he pulled him up, and he said, "I think there's some secrets here that not even the spirit of the puzzle is aware of." And he's like, "I seek only to seek the thief that took Pegasus' Millennium Eye." Yugi didn't even know that. He said he lost his eye. He's like, so that's why he was being carried away. And all of a sudden, this door highlights and opens up, and like it calls to Yugi because he's pure of heart, I guess. And they go through it, and they find out through going through it that basically he used to be a pharaoh and all this shit. The point is that at the end of it, it has to show, and it taught what being pure of heart is like, and what true justice is like. And also, it taught me what keeping one's word means. Like, there's a reason why I use Pegasus in some of my like gamer handles and stuff. Pegasus is a cartoon character that taught me early on that even if you lose, suffer like a horrible defeat, which he did, like he was just trying to bring his wife back. Um, I mean, he did kind of go out of bounds in some ways, but like when it came to him keeping his word about releasing people, like he did, and you know, like he took his defeat uh, with dignity, basically. And it might seem silly, but that's where I learned that from. Where like your word's your bond. I almost would have expected and was thinking that he wasn't going to keep his word because he ran off. Right after he lost, he straight up just abandoned all his cards and left before Yugi or anybody in the crowd or anybody noticed he left. But so Shoddy and him end up coming back, and he lets him go, and he said, "You may see me again later." He said, "But be careful." He said, "Because the thief that came after Pegasus's Millennium Eye will surely come after yours." And he was right. Before he tries to come after Yugi. I liked when they showed how Pegasus got his eye too. Like he was in Egypt looking for answers about the dead and people that had passed on because his wife had died of cancer suddenly before they got to like get married really and consummate. And he ended up going there and he ran into Shoddy and he said, "You've come a long way." You know, he dropped his hat in the wind and Shoddy grabbed it and he said, "Stranger, you've come a long way trying to seek the ills of your heart." He said, "But oftentimes the object of trying to heal a broken heart can lead to a more broken one." And he said, "Wait, how'd you know?" And he's like, "Doesn't matter, go home." And he ends up following him. And he's like, he knows he's being followed the whole time. He's like, "So you chose not to heed my warning." And they grab him. He said, "Since you followed down here," he said, "you got to take the test to see if you're worthy." And he said, "If you're not worthy," he said, "then you will see nightmares beyond your wildest imaginations and visions that will make you go mad." And he basically shoves the eye into his eye socket and eyeball. And he doesn't go mad. So he was, worthy enough to get it. That's how he ended up getting his Millennium item to begin with. And he got to see his wife for a brief moment, but it wasn't, completely real. You know, it was just kind of like an ability, a gift to be able to experience it. But, you know, at the end, he, realized it wasn't exactly real. So, yep. It's one of them shows that teaches a lot of lessons. And cool thing about it is it's like a it's an original like Japanese type manga, which I'm not big into. Now, my ex Kayla, she loved some Japanese anime stuff, mangas and different things. I had no idea about any of that shit. And I straight up told her, I was like, "I like Yu-Gi-Oh!" I was like, "and don't tell me that don't count because it most certainly has uh, mangas and books, comics, TV series, movies." I was like, "It's technically anime in a way." I was like, and the good part thing about it, especially for younger people, I was like, there's no over sexualization in it compared to a lot of other anime crap and stuff that I seen Kayla's show and different stuff. I was like, shit. I was like, the most is you might see Joey blushing on somebody he crushes on, getting a kiss on the cheek, a rare kiss on the lips from two characters, very rarely, and that's it. I'm like, you don't. I'm like, I'm like, that's pretty dang PG if you ask me. You know, and that's one of those shows like I could get back into uh, hell tonight or whatever. Um, and I guarantee I could re-enjoy them because that, like I said, certain moral things learned from them that they teach and echo within the episodes and basically within the embodiment of the episode, so that it's an overall arching theme that, I mean, if your mind is not completely shut off and dull, then you uh, receive and absorb that theme so that at the end of it, you're left thinking and pondering about it. And your soul, your mind has to make a decision upon it. whether you think one way, the other, or somewhere in the middle concerning it. It's up to you ultimately. But, I mean, that's exactly what it does. I mean, all good shows that are either made for young children or an age group that goes up to like preteens or teenager, uh, or hell, even some stuff that's like right at teenager all the way up to like young adult or right under 18. All of that stuff, the stuff that separates good um, media and bad media, is the ones that make sure to include, even if the scene or the current chapters or chapter in the scene or whatever is like insignificant to some or whatever. Like they can always, usually creatively, a writer can insert a lesson in there somewhere. And that's what makes good shows versus bad ones for people in that age group, even through college, over 18. Um, like that's the easiest way to convey messages that are like things that are truths, principles of truth, or uh, simply, facts of life, like doing unto others what you wish, to be done unto you. And everybody struggles with that. One of the way we struggle, like especially here on YouTube with people, um, is these people. And about the title, I know I kind of trailed off and didn't get into it, but it has to do with this live I just watched, Andrea, and it has to do with the fact that y'all was playing something that y'all referred to as square trivia. And while a lot of most of the things, technically, on a technicality basis, um, like I said, and not all, but I said a lot of the beginning, most things on a technicality basis, while the associations and stuff named by certain ones were correct in the technicality sense, some of the stuff was actually incorrect as well. The basis for the explanation for some of the things as well was incorrect. For example, people said, who was the couple? Now, imagine somebody wanting to do trivia about Square, as if that's not a loaded setup to be some attacking ass, do some attacking ass shit, and give somebody the perfect opportunity and attempt, a trying time to attempt, to have thrown in there and thrown up the age old classic of his automobile accident that resulted in a tragic, unfortunate death, which they don't even describe like that. It seems like they would, considering how much they try to play up about it, about, like they try to act like that they have respect for the tragedy and stuff, but they don't. And here's how. Because every single one of them that laugh about it or sit there and pretend to actually believe, either because of peer pressure and only do it out of peer pressure and not wanting to be singled out by anybody, or because they actually got the nerve um, of somehow convincing their brain to allow them to falsely accept that, yes, I killed those people, um, and I'm scum, and I'm going to hell or whatever else, and I should have went to jail. I didn't go to jail because, and this is actually one of the troll's fucking explanations, because my friend, I guess they're gonna try to go with, I don't know if this is true or not, if they said this, but I would imagine they said some bullshit like, well, because his caregiver and friend Saul, who was a former mayor and a damn Mason, and hell, they probably called it Illuminati too. And Illuminati, he was able. Now, again, the Mason Illuminati thing, I'm just kind of like guessing up. I'm just thinking that hell, they might as well think that too, because besides that imaginative part, the rest of it that they thought though was because he was a former mayor and because he grown up and had a lot of pool, more than likely they imagined in his town where he was mayor and where he lived, that he was able to influence and get me to not absorb and have me basically absolved of any responsibility for the wreck, because of some type of pool apparently with the state trooper. Here's the thing though that's wrong. There's so many holes in that. Number one, it wasn't a wreck in the city. Hell, it wasn't even right outside of the city limits. We wasn't even in the county of his city anymore. We were in my county. See, what people don't realize is I always have lived, when I was working for him, we lived, and I always lived in two separate counties. They're next to one another, like his is the next county over once you leave mine, and vice versa. But still, I mean, not the exact same county. Uh, so, in other words, when you go to jail over here where I live, you go to our county's jail. Now, if you were to go to jail over there where I worked and where he lived, you would go to their jail. They have a county jail there in the city. That's how that works. So, yeah, that doesn't make sense. How the hell somebody from a city that is from a county over is going to have influence on a state trooper troop? Because our state troopers are divided into troops. Our state has sections divided for each specific troop. In other words, one part of the state that encompasses maybe 3 to 4 counties is covered by Troop A. Another one that has 3 to 4 counties is covered by Troop B, and so on and so forth. Well, we have good old Troop E, I believe. It's either E or F, one of the two. And they cover our area, which is like, besides my county and Saul's county, I think they cover uh, New Madrid and Mississippi counties as well. So they probably cover like 4 to 5 counties almost. all the highways of those counties, anything. It usually, even if it's a state highway, even, unless it's a county side or gravel road, um, then it's handled by the highway patrol. County side or gravel road, sheriffs would pop up more than likely. But state highways and interstates for sure, yeah, that's all being handled by the state troopers. And about this wreck, people, they have said, how many times we got to go over this? They tried to say, well, they gave you so much dope, they wouldn't be able to tell you was fucked up, so therefore they couldn't properly drug test you. If that is the case, then every time somebody would have a wreck that's fatal or something, and they end up surviving somehow, and have a major break or bone or something, and they give them a drug, and how the hell would they ever secure a fucking conviction? You sound ignorant as hell. You're not thinking fully with your brain. Number one, whatever that you are administered while on scene for a wreck, they take obvious records and logs of it. So before they gave me it first thing, they checked my blood pressure and all that stuff, knowing I'm sitting there with my damn leg broken, you know. But what have you? And they asked me if I'm allergic to anything, and I tell them all the stuff I'm allergic to, and they said, "Good to know." And he writes it down on something and basically puts a damn band and shit on my wrist. Next thing you know, one guy comes in on the passenger side with the door open, and he has an IV bag, and he asked me for my arm, and he starts my thing. I said, "What are y'all doing?" He said, "I was like, please tell me that you guys are gonna give me something before you pull me out of this car or try to, because I don't know how in the world you're gonna get me out of here." I was like, "I'm scared to move. This leg is broken." He said, just, calm down. Don't worry about all that." He said, "We'll have a plan." He said, "We're about to give you 10 milligrams. Hear me. 10 milligrams of morphine IV. Okay. That's it. 10 milligrams." So, he had that down to the dosage. So that's what they gave me. And it basically kind of made me feel a little warm like cotton, what have you. But I was still very much aware and alert. I wasn't in any pain initially because my leg was bent and it basically was resting in the shape that it was in after it was broken, and but thing is, whenever I tried to get up and move on my own and stuff, I started to feel a deep pressure inside and sting, and I knew. I started to think when they started opening my door and stuff, and I said, "They're gonna have to get me out of here and get me fucking flat and straight." I said, "How the hell are they gonna do that?" I started thinking, like, how in the hell are they going to get my leg and me completely flat on a gurney? I was like, there is no flipping way. I was like, they're, I was like, that shit's gonna hurt. I said, unless they plan to leave my leg bent, and I didn't know if that was a possible. I was just sitting there. I started to hyperventilate almost. I said, "Man, what are y'all gonna have to do to get me out of here? This is gonna." And they said, "Ian," and one of them had sat there with a brace in his hand, and they already had a thing real close nearby, stretched. The other one had a brace, and he was kind of like behind the door where I couldn't see it. I could see straps. And the other guy said, "Hey," he said, he said, we're gonna get you up out of here. He said, I'm gonna count to three. He said, and on three, he said, I'm going to lift you up out. And he said, he said, whatever names, screaming, cursing, whatever you need to throw at me and give me, he said, I'm not gonna be offended. Let me have it. He said, all right. He said, I promise you. He said, it will be he said, we're going to make the transition very quick and smooth as we can. And I said, well, wait, well, and he goes, all right, one. And then he goes, two. And I said, wait, when you go out, and then and before he even got to three, they got me out, and the other one grabbed my leg and yanked, and they said three as they were done. I was like, ah. Boy, I was going, ooh, I was getting up there on some octaves. I screamed my ass off. I'm talking about I thought the dude was trying to pull my motherfucking leg apart. What he was doing though, was technically he was setting my leg, my femur, technically. Because my femur basically was cracked and kind of bent, and so it wasn't my shin or tibia or leg there down there. It wasn't my knee, wasn't my foot, but it was like my thigh area. So all they could do was grab my leg and pull it as hard as they could to try to, get that to straighten out. And then after they have pulled as hard as they could and straightened it out as naturally as possible. Then they took a brace and they wrapped it around it specifically, and they freaking adjusted it and tightened it very damn tight. I'm talking about as tight as they possibly flipping could to help push the bone and keep it pushed down into that new place they've set it as best as they could. It wasn't straightened completely. It wasn't, by any means fixed, but it was, I guess it wasn't any more like extremely freaking, like, whatchamacallit, bent and fractured or what have you, because when I first fractured and stopped and got consciousness and looked down, my leg looked a little bit more than above average bigger than my other one. But I ain't realized nothing yet. I was still sitting there. I got my phone finally. I called and said I had a wreck. I'm still sitting here. So I haven't tried to get out yet. I said, I got my phone. I said, but I'm a little concerned. I told my grandparents, I said, my right knee is bleeding. I said, it's my pants leg, my sweatpants are, these Nike sweatpants are ripped at my knee line, my knee, where my knee bends and the knee's at, and I see blood coming out of it. I said, so I was like, plus my thigh, for some reason, on my right leg is about double the size normal of my regular thigh. And my grandmother said, oh my Lord. I said, yeah, something is worrying me that I may have broke it. I was like, I'm not in a horrible pain, I don't think, or I know, but I said, I've scooted around a little bit and stuff, and I've got this dulling, aching sense in it, like it's throbbing and something's wrong. And I tried to move, and as soon as I tried to move and I felt that sharp shock, I said, yep, oh, yep, it's broken. I said, yep, it's broken. I'm not going anywhere. I said, I hope nobody hits me. It's Grandma, she's like, why do you say that? I said, well, I'm only on the side of the highway where I just had, my own wreck. I said, and I'm facing the opposite direction, meaning that I'm facing the way traffic uh, comes from, meaning head on. I was like, but I am out of the way, technically. I'm on the side where you would normally pull over. I said, I just barely didn't go all the way off the ledge to where I would, otherwise, I would have rolled off into the ditch. Can you imagine having your leg broke and being rolled upside down? That'd be more painful to probably get out than regularly. But no, by the grace of God, my car stopped exactly where you pull over at for cops and stuff. I was just turned around. Just turned around. And eventually a nurse came out from the school, checked on me, and told me, she said, oh, I know your grandmother and grandfather. I told her who I was, and she said my last name a couple times, and she said, is your daddy? And I said, nope. I said, that's my uncle. I said, other one. And she got it. I said, yeah, their parents, my grandparents, is who raised me and I grew up with. I said, our grandfather's on his way out here. I got a hold of my phone and 911, thankfully. She said, some other people from the school we've called too. We've called people as well. And I said, has someone checked on the other vehicle? And when I had asked that, she'd said, whatchamacallit, can't think. There's supposedly two nurses of them there, and the other one that supposedly went to the vehicle. But she said, but since you're awake and alert and doing okay beside you, like, she's like, I'm going to go see about her. And I said, okay. And she left. Then, next thing you know, cops finally appeared, ambulance appeared, and their grandfather appeared. When they was getting ready to pull me out, I looked at him like with the most scary eyes, like, fucking please help get me up out of here, help do something. He's like, he just looked at me like, I'm sorry, that I can't do anything. I'm like, oh God, they're gonna hurt me. It hurt. I mean, he tried to catch me off guard by doing it on 2 instead of 3. Although I kind of, at the present moment, I was kind of very ticked off by that. And I kind of let him know it too. I'm like, man, you said 3. I started to talk right when you went 2, and you went, and he said, I'm sorry, buddy. I was trying to make it easier on you by not letting you be unable to, completely anticipate it. And then on the way to the hospital, well, like I said, before I even, and here's the other fact too, before I got that morphine, when they got my IV ready to give me that saline first to hydrate me and stuff, they made sure to take some blood samples because I had not lost a tremendous amount of blood. So I was not at risk of providing a couple blood samples. I think they got like a total of either 3 to 4 freaking little phlebotomy tube worths of blood. That's it. They didn't take a damn pint from me. They simply required just enough to have probably a sample to go to the highway patrol, sample to go to the hospital for analysis, another sample possibly for God knows what else to check for medically into the hospital, and then an extra sample just in case, probably. I think that's usually the protocol. They got like one for just an extra sample. In case something happens with the others or whatever the fuck it may be. Anywho, so then they gave me an IV and 10 milligrams morphine. And then when in the helicopter, they told me, because they eventually took me from an ambulance to the helicopter. And the ambulance is where I heard one of the authorities say, yeah, we've got one that is DOA, which I knew that meant dead on arrival, meaning they had passed away long before, you know, my 911 got here or anything, and probably by the time that the nurse or what have you went out to their vehicle. But apparently their vehicle had, since it was trying to go across that highway when it got hit, it kind of still continued on that direction somewhat. And when it went off the embankment and ditch, I think what ended up happening was it had gotten hit on its passenger side, so it ended up going off and then falling over and landing on its driver side, I believe, with the passenger side up. And so it was kind of almost turned over, but not fully. And you know, it's common knowledge, and they really spread awareness about it too after that one. That, you know, if you are a skinnier, smaller, older person, um, or just not that tall, and for some reason your seatbelt is resting and tends to rest and go across your neck and stay there, like instead of being across and going across your shoulder and then coming up around the top of your shoulder like normal. They have a thing out there that helps with making sure that it keeps your seatbelt from, because if your seatbelt does that, with the way the seatbelts are set up to lock into place when there's an impact or some, and it happens even sometimes regularly to you when you're not even driving or whatever. If you notice, like if you lean up and back, and like sometimes your seat belt will lock on you and you can't lean, and then you have to lean all the way back for it to reset it. You know, well, let that happen whenever you're getting into a high speed collision, and you know, it locks up and it's resting over your neck so that when you go forward, it's going to be locked and it's going to catch right on your neck. I mean, and just the right way, you could actually end up snapping your neck that way. It's not guaranteed. I mean, you might just end up fracturing something or whatever else too, but it's very dangerous and not something you want to mess around with. Um, because in this instance, it actually did exactly that. It was the direct cause of death for the driver of the other vehicle. Their passenger, um, rest in peace, Mr. Hogan. He passed away of internal injuries. He took the brunt of the accident being the fact that it was on his side. And even though they were in a newer car, new and up to standards in all account, I'm sure those the things they install on the side that are supposed to be airbags on the side are really thin, and studies have shown that I don't know, that they really don't up the effectiveness of protection a whole lot. Um, I remember when I had the wreck that wasn't also this wreck was not my fault either. Um, and this gentleman did a U-turn without yielding and stopping and pulled back onto the highway, and we T-boned. Luckily, we both were okay and walked away and talked to one another. But when he finally was starting to get out of his vehicle, I was looking, and his van was a newer Dodge van, and he had all these airbags that you could tell have deployed on the sides and around and in the backs and stuff. And I was like, dang, that's a lot of airbags, you know. And I thought that probably makes people a little safer, but it it just didn't seem to do a whole lot in the other accident. But I tell you what, I don't appreciate the criticism because this is what I know. You have to understand also this. We're talking about 2000 and literally 2000 and freaking 16. Okay, I mean that is exact. So how long is that? Do we need to go back? Let's see. It's 2025, so 5, 4, so it's about 9 years ago. You know, I I'm sure that some things I will not remember clearly, but I do know what I remember clearly about being in the hospital was very clear. I remember Walking Tall coming on and watching it, which I'd actually never watched it before, so it was my first time watching it, and I liked it. That's a minute detail, but just saying. I remember being on a dilaudid pain pump, which was practically a device that had this big ass, humongous XL size syringe of fluid medicine and was locked in a plexiglass type container case with a little keyhole on it. And the device basically had a little plunger thing on the top, or part of the plunger of the syringe, and basically would mechanically automatically push in on that plunger just enough to equate to the amount that I was allowed to get every 15 minutes, the dose. And that's exactly what it did. And I had like this little bitty call button almost that would be red when I couldn't push it and green when I could push it. And then, yep, that's how it worked. And I sat there, and then the, I believe it was the second day I was there, or the third, one of the two, I got a phone call. Now, I said apparently in a older live stream and called the visitor that called me the daughter of the deceased other party in the accident. And they told me that that they don't have a daughter. Okay. Well, maybe it was a daughter-in-law or granddaughter. Either way, a woman, a female gendered loved one of these people, Mr. and Mrs. Hogan, that were trying to do nothing else but drive through and cross over from the direction of Pascola and head towards the direction of Braggadocia across Interstate 412, met me untimely at an intersection at a yield sign, and it's not absolutely determined. It never will be able to be because the people would have to be alive to be able to find out. But two things are for certain, according to the Hopwick Patrol. The Kia Soul, aka Mr. and Mrs. Hogan's car, either failed to yield completely. In other words, they never did much but maybe just slow down a little bit and just kept coming right on through without ever fully stopping and yielding, and you know, caused the wreck that way. Or perhaps from the standpoint of the physicality of the driver, as well as um, height and different things, perhaps there was a misjudgment of how far away I actually was, that they had enough time, that there was plenty of time just to cross. Or, the most unlikeliest of explanation, but is still a possibility, but unlikely for a lot, is not being able to, for some reason, see me at all, just obscured from vision. Perhaps maybe thinking falsely that the way was clear because they didn't notice me somehow. Those are the possibilities that were laid out. Obviously, nothing was done on purpose. Nothing like that was ever considered. But I was put through a drug panel. I know that. Because blood, I mean, it's more quantifiable and can tell you even more than pee or hair ever could. Hair is good if you want to have the insight if somebody is used within a time period that's, more than a month, the last couple months. Hair is good for that. Urine's really not good. There's so many ways to cheat it. So much fake urine out there that contains the right levels of creatine, different things, so it passes all those little test markers. Wizinators. Unless you're going to a urine test that has a officer, probation officer, or something, some other type of officer that watches and has to observe your sex organ. Um, or some weird thing may cause you to have to turn around and show it or what have you. Uh, Whatever the case may be, because I've seen that one judge, um, the white guy with glasses, bald head, and bow tie, I forget his name. He's a good judge. I've seen him talk about a couple people that they busted trying to pass off and use a Wizinator to cheat a drug test. And I'm like, how the fuck did they get caught with one of those? Because usually the way they work and the way they're designed, you wear that thing like a belt, but it's worn, in your pants, almost like a regular ding dong. It's kind of like placed right over your real ding dong. All you have to do, you're supposed to do, once it's on and filled up, it's got uh, a lab beatable form of urine. It's either clean, or if you had to dirty it with something that you're supposed to have, you could as well. Only dirty it with that. And then you're supposed to be able to go in there. They give you a cup. Heck, even if you don't get a stall or whatever, if you have to like be right there, usually you can turn around to some extent, and you pull it out through your fly like you would your normal one, and you squeeze it, and by squeezing it, it activates it, and it pees for you. And it would make drippy noises and pee sounds and all the rest of the shit naturally. Uh, you pee as much as you want or think you need. Stop. Hell, you can even simulate it with stopping. They said by squeeze, stop, about, like normal, which is something that normally happens sometimes. I know I can relate to. Do that. Put it back in your fly, zip up your fly, wash your hands. I mean, I don't see how people can't fool and get by more with that whenever it's just a pee test. I've never done that. I mean, I've never spent the money on one of them things, but apparently, from what I heard, it's essentially a special type of belt that's made with, like, I guess, not exact material for like a dildo or strap on, but similar, soft. But it's made where it's got a pouch designed built into it uh, to hold the liquid, the pee, what have you. You can hold real pee or fake pee, whatever. And batteries in it, in the pouch part of it, of the belt, help keep the sack and the contents, the liquid, warm at 98 degrees, so you don't fuck that up. Then all it takes for you is to basically squeeze the damn thing, like you was sitting there squeezing your own meat or whatever. I just do not on earth, like, if I had one of those whenever I was for the short time on doing tests, shit, I would have passed with flying colors. Uh, Luckily, though, I ended up finding out through one of the officers. He's like, technically, you coming here is completely voluntary. And I looked at him and I said, "Do what?" He said, "People wanted you to be scared straight from, because you'd hung out with what's his name and y'all smoked that night, and his stepmom and or his stepdad and mom found out. And, um, the thing is, where y'all were at, his grandfather, he had nothing negative to say about y'all. He liked you too, and he didn't care. He said his words were actually to the effect of, well, at least they were at the house, um, doing what they were wanting to do instead of being out driving around or whatever else, and were being kind of responsible. I mean, that was literally what was said by him. And if the homeowner is like charging us for anything or trespassing when we technically had permission to be there, then they literally had us on nothing. So yeah, like the primary officer didn't tell me that shit. It was the secondary one. He's like, you technically don't even have to come. He said, next time, don't be an idiot and leave your wallet. And I said, I know. I said, look, I was trying to get the heck out of Dodge, out of there. I was like, because his stepdad or whatever, they would have tried to hold me there against my will. He's like, well, they technically can't do that either. I'm like, shit, they would have tried. I'm like, they were chasing after me when I left, and his stepdad slammed on my car hood trunk when I left. Andrew's ass went off into the damn cornfields and fucking farm fields and just ran. He went one way, I went the other. Shit. It was a good time. But I ended up getting a drink that supposedly helped you pass. I think it might just have diluted the stuff, because when I was in there and I took it that time, they said it looks pretty clear on it. And the other officer was like, yeah, kind of clear. And I'm like, I drank a lot of water, okay, before I came in here. That's all I'm trying to do, make sure. And they said, all right, like, you're free to go that way, you know. But yeah, I didn't have any charge or anything. Technically, yeah, still I was a juvenile at the time, but um, see, it was friends like that, and Drew later on, and he almost got us in trouble in freaking Arkansas of all places. We went down there to hang out with him and some of his buds from there because he used to live from there, and a couple girls, and we all hooked up with one. I got to hook up with one. Um, she kind of took me for a fucking spin in my world. Uh, like Andrew and what's his name, they was laughing because they was like, they said, bro, they said, you got, they're like, you got freaking pussy with all over my face. They said, all over your face. I was like, shit. I was like, I just had a good time. I was like, that's all I'm just happy. They're like, yeah, we could tell. Then next thing you know, woo, woo, like freaking police, man. And his friend was like, hey, y'all get down into the damn basement. And they had this basement, and then deeper down in that basement, there was a cellar freaking thing that went like down to like even another deeper fucking basement. And so we went all the way down there and we sat out there for a minute while apparently whoever he called the cops were, cops came in, they looked around, like they saw him and only like I think one of the girls because the other two were kind of hiding and they didn't see us. They did check down the first part basement, but the way it was set up, you couldn't see the other cellar, so you wouldn't know it was there. And then they just kind of left. Um, Noise violation and stuff, and they apologized, so they keep the music down. But hell yeah, I mean, that shit was close because you might think, well, why the hell would y'all have to hide? Well, they accused of us of having a party, so the more of us shown would definitely shown the presence of a party. And then they might have really searched stuff over because there was white some places hidden and different things like that. Like we had done some cocaine and dudes had some X too. I mean, all types of shit. But yeah, it was crazy. Insane in the membrane. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Never will forget watching House of Wax with what's her name though. She came over to Drew's too before, but I swear like I don't know. And then and here's the other thing, Andrea, about the trivia stuff, about the square trivia, right? And besides y'all saying kill, which I didn't kill those people, they were unfortunately they passed away and died because of a tragic motor vehicle collision and accident that was unavoidable. Now, I mean, that's what it amounts to. I mean, that is the closest fact about it you're going to get. But people that want to have a negative, pessimistic attitude towards me to vilify me and to demonize me, they are going to make the outlook dreary, dreadful, evil, pessimistic, and fucked up, and be and show and act like where's the outrage and stuff about it to affect and try to affect those feelings out of anyone that hears it or thinks about it, etc., under the way they describe it. Period. That's all it is. Moving on. Marquette is not a fucking transformer. Alright? Marquette has a fucking vagina that is pink on the inside, like any other woman's vagina. Alright? It wasn't made, technically altered, or surgically cut up from a deek and turned into a hollowed out false vagina when she's been pregnant and has fucking kids. And how do I know this? Because people tried to say that the pregnancy photos or whatever were fake. That she had somehow a prosthetic fucking pregnancy apparatus at her income level and bracket and everything. Okay? Well, guess what? I've seen some of her children. So, there. They're real. They weren't adopted. They came from her because they look damn near like her. Exactly. All right. So, yes, she is an African American woman. She basically, no offense, but at the time, I guess wasn't in the best straits resource wise, and I had helped her out on some other things already. I took her out on a date, and then she was asking for some other, and of course I ended up giving it to her, and stuff. But I mean, I had sex with her, so I definitely know she's a fucking woman. I mean, it's just the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, why in the flip? I mean, that would be the worst luck ever, and I would be very mad. I wouldn't hurt the person, although I would have quite a earful to give them and tell them to get the hell away from me. But if anyone, like if I ever somehow was tricked or to fall into thinking somebody was a woman and they technically were a freaking biological, you know, I'm gonna be pissed off, but you know, I'm gonna be shocked. From that point on, yeah, um, that'd probably change a person to always want to vet everybody they meet from there on out. But still, yeah, there's no need to want to like beat somebody up or something for that. We had a gay friend around us in high school and stuff, but he never tried coming on to any of us. Now there was one person who, let's say, they must have been, as they call it, bi-curious or whatever, because uh, ended up getting a blowjob from dude like at all our friend Becca's house in the backyard. And then everybody found out and roasted the shit out of him for it and told him, just to accept who he was and shit. Like, you know, we all respected freaking Mikey, and Mikey didn't give a shit what anybody thought of him, but yeah, that shit was funny. That's why I think it's crazy that people say what they say about me, because if I was that way, like, I would have had plenty of opportunities, like, you know, I, it's just insane. Like, and I've been with a woman just about consistently over and over and over, whether it's uh, my Muslim girlfriend from Nashville when I was in and beginning of high school, or uh, freaking once I came back from Nashville, and I have Kayla. And then before I left Nashville too, in high school, I dated Sydney, who I met through freaking basically bowling. We went to the same private school. Then I ended up going to the public school because, well, $6,000 a year, $6,000 a year saved. Plus, private schools suck. But yeah, a lot more people, a lot more variety of friends at the public school, and a lot more activities like JROTC. People brought that up. I noticed nobody got something right. First of all, Hillbilly tried to say, "Oh, Squarehead. What name did Square give himself a nickname? Did he nickname himself when he got his license?" I don't. Number one, I've never been arrogant enough to nickname myself. Ex- Unless you count and except for the category of gamer tags and stuff where you give yourself a shortened or custom nickname type thing, where I've done, for PlayStation, like, and chose Pegasus. Aside from that, I don't nickname myself. Um, what you're referring to that somebody guessed and you said answer correct, the Whipman Willie, that literally came from a friend that we called and nicknamed Jam, whose real name was Justin, who is also in JROTC alongside me, and was a very good friend. And Jam, our Jam Monster, Justin, called me Whipman Willis. Willie was Rez's take on it. Keenan would say either Willie or Willis. But it was a group thing of our group, which our group included my mentors, businessmen's father's son, which was Darius, Eric's son, Darius, and then Jam or Justin, which they lived literally in the same subdivision right down the street from one another. Justin and Darius did. Resgar lived up 2, 3 blocks up the hill and then down another block over the hill. And there's Resgar's house. Same subdivision area. That's Justin, Darius, and Resgar. Then you had Keenan, who you would go back out to the main road, which was called Blue Hole. It was known as Blue Hole Road. And you'd go down it all the way to the stop sign. And you'd have a back road. You could go left or right. You'd go right and come to another stop sign, make a left. And as you go around the curve and come down the straightaway, you'll see a subdivision on your left and one on your right. And you take the one on your left as entrance, go in it, turn left on the first road, go around all this curve, and then eventually on the right near the end will be Canaan's house. So that was about 2 miles away from Darius, Justin, and Rez's. So that's basically our group, right? And all of those guys would call me, Whipman Willie. And they gave me that nickname because every morning before school and after school, I would pick not only Darius up and Justin and Rez and Keenan. We would usually still, with just even enough time to spare to, stop gas station, get snacks, whatever, something to drink, and get on the highway, and take our time getting there to either smoke if we could, not every morning, but a lot of the ones sometimes, smoke, and then put it out, air out. Right before we get to the school, I'd stop usually, I'd get out, I'd put cigarettes and if there's any weed, which usually didn't have on me in my car, but if there was, sometimes, or someone else's, take that along with the cigarettes and stuff others had, put it in my air compressor tank, which was this little space module thing that popped off, had a top that popped off, and inside was an air filter thing, and just put it in there, and then pop the top back on top of it, which would snap close. Shut my engine, hood, get in the car, drive us the rest of the way to school. We'd go to school for the day, come back, get in the car, leave, stop at the gas station after leaving, retrieve our cigarettes and stuff, start to smoke and unwind in the afternoon, and drive back to our subdivision to roll one up, or stop by the gas station before that, grab something to roll one up, smoke, and then eventually after we'd smoke, certain people would go home first, go home, and the other ones would either stay, hang out with them, work on school, play Nazi zombies on COD, or eventually go home. But yeah, that's basically what we did. And that's how I was called Whipman Wilson, because my last name was Flippin' Wilson, and I had the whip when nobody else did. Hell, I wasn't even originally from there. I was from out of state, and I had a whip, and none of them did. And I was driving that whip with those out of state license plates all the time. And the police even tried to give me some shit about it. And it's like I told them, I said, this car is up to date, registered, and has current insurance. I said, this is owned by my grandfather, and I gave him his name. I said, and I gave him his address and the state he lives in. I said, now, he is a resident there. He's been a resident there all his life. I said, he is not a resident here. However, I currently am for school with my dad. I said, this is technically my car loaned and given to me, but it's owned and in his name as I'm a minor. I said, all of its usual year stuff is paid for or whenever it's renewed and due. I said, and I cannot get him to change this registration anywhere else because legally he don't live anywhere else. I said, and I'm not required to change it because it's not even my car. And there's nothing that says I can't use it though. I said, so I was like, I don't know what you want me to do, but even if I tried or wanted to try to do something with this car, I would run into nothing but roadblocks because I don't have the proper paperwork or ownership. I was like, I can't misrepresent it and lie and say, oh, it has no title, lost title, and ask them to print me up some new phony title when there's a real one out there. I was like, there's nothing I can do. I was like, and you guys are going to tell me that this isn't going to work, that I'm going to have to fix this, change something about fix and get this changed up to code. I said, it is up to code. I said, I promise you it is. I was like, because you get with the law, check the law books, and you let me know what the law says when a vehicle is being used and borrowed by somebody in a different jurisdiction or state. And it's registered, of course, though, in the jurisdiction and state where the actual owner resides and lives legally. What does the law say you can do? Not a damn thing. I was like, there's not anything you can do. I was like, I was like, there's no time limit. I'm not allowed to only use it for a month and then it's got to be gone. I'm like, as long as this thing is legally insured and has all the up to date stickers, tags, and registration, not out of date. I said, there's no law it's breaking, not any. And to be honest with you, I never did change my license while I was there either. I knew I wasn't going to be there forever, especially after high school, so I didn't see the point in changing my license. I just never did it. I never got stopped enough or had anything ongoing in traffic court or anything to where I would have to prove I changed my license finally or what have you. I got stopped one time, man, bleeding nose. Like, I had legit a bad case of nosebleeds, and all I had was a damn t-shirt left over in my car. I had my buddy in the back seats and shit like, give me that t-shirt. I was holding it against my nose trying to drive, and I must have went over the speed limit because I was doing like 36. And the speed limit, of course, was 30. So we get pulled over by an undercover car. You know, didn't even see it. It was an undercover Impala, dark Impala. Their marked Impalas are white. They were old school Impala. They were like mid 2000 Impalas that were solid white and marked. This one was dark, not marked. But the cop came up to the damn car, fucking, wouldn't you know it, knew my passenger. Him and my passenger, Resgar, shit, they used to run into each other all the time when he was at some juvenile place or whatever, juvie, something like some home or place for young boys, men, what have you, teenagers. Uh, Anyways, they started talking to each other like on a first name basis, sort of. And I was sitting there holding my nut, and he looked at me and he said, "What'd these guys do to you?" And I said, "Oh, they didn't do nothing to me." I was like, "I've got a bad thing with nosebleeds. That's all. It started to bleed, and I was trying to drive while I was doing this, and that might have been foolish. I didn't mean to go over the speed limit." He ended up letting us go, and he said, "I'll take my thank you now." And I'm like, "Yeah, thank you." I'm like, "I'm glad you did know him." I was like, "Shit, you saved me from a ticket," you know, 'cause he basically kind of like charmed him and talked to him, kind of fed his ego a little bit different ways. Yeah, he basically made it a pleasant interaction to where we just got let go, and that was nice, pretty smooth. Like I said, he knew him because that cop used to work wherever he was housed or at for a little bit. And they ran into each other all the time. But yeah, there was some other trivia, so-called trivia. Where did Ian first cry? I'll tell you where I first cried. I first cried when I was on the phone, technically, with Cammy and Creek when they threatened to have me turned into the next Johnny Gobo or Durkee by means of Scooter fucking Beggins as one primary tool. That's the technical truth. That might have been not technically online, but it was over online stuff and on the phone. I'm surprised how much old blood money got right. Brown belt, exactly right. Karate. April, you said I was lying. No, dummy, I'm not lying. My dad tried to make me stick it out fully in that. I didn't. He got up to second degree black belt. I did not. So, I did end up quitting. Now that I think, I might have actually been wrong. It might have been just fifth degree red, which is right before brown. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Um, so I was almost brown belt actually, but yeah, I wouldn't need to lie about any of that stuff. Like my dad had me do that in response to me getting bullied. Anywho, um, some of the other trivia was freaking something like, uh, hold on. People were trying to say that, Deez was lying, saying, "Where'd he get chased out at?" Pizza place. I wasn't chased out. All right. Number one, I went to him because I was pretty much being allowed to be freaking disrespected by some of the other coworkers. And what I didn't realize is that something that I had said to him as my boss, he inappropriately went ahead and repeated it back like a little gossip girl to the other workers because I guess he felt closer with them because they wasn't as new as I was, and therefore, you know, you know, like they were saying what they were saying as a direct result of because of what he told them that I told him in private, which was inappropriate and wrong, not cool. If he didn't like what I had to say, he could have fired me or whatever. But you don't fucking make my work environment hostile because that's what he was doing. And so as a result of that, and they said some shit like, it's real dangerous around here. People need to be careful. They might have an accident. I decided to then go up to him near the end of the shift, and I said, "All right." I was like, "Look, um, I've pointed some stuff out, but apparently, I'm getting like this cold shoulder, and people are being allowed to threaten basically me, and this is a hostile environment." I was like, "I'm not quitting." I said, but at the same time, I'm finding it hard to be able to work. Uh, so I guess I'm going to have to go to corporate or what have you about this, or whoever management is here, and figure this out. But I just wanted to let you know that, uh, you know, I said because when people are able to come around here and say that I better be careful that I could have an accident, I was like, that's basically making it really very hard for me to come here and do my job and feel at ease that something crazy is not going to happen. And I basically told him what I was going to do. And it pissed him off as he sat there and thought about it. And as I started to walk out, he fucking followed me to try to tell me off. And almost as if he wanted to fucking, touch me or some shit. And I just kept walking. And as you see, people came out and they told him to chill out and called him by his name. And he left, and I left. But no, he did not fucking chase me up out of there. That's for damn sure. I could have just straight up left, and there wouldn't have been any scene on the dash cam if I hadn't said a word, probably. But I felt that, you know, it was bullshit, as he was supposed to be my manager and the boss there. And I went to him like I'm supposed to do over something. I didn't, fucking make a big deal. I didn't blow his phone up. I didn't send him 1,000 messages. I didn't call him 5,000 times. I sent a few text messages. Overall, that was it. And then next thing you know, I'm at work and I'm pretty much like, you know, other times before at work, people would say, yo, what's up, da da, this, that, third. He would. Well, then I come to work and I say stuff and I get fuck all back. Like I basically, like almost like I didn't say anything, like I'm talking to a wall. And so I took that in stride and said, okay. And then when stuff was coming through on the screen, different things, I questioned about an order and I literally fucking didn't get answered, over an order. And so then I asked again, and they told me that, oh, they got it. I'm like, okay. Then finally, I'm doing wings and shit. And all of a sudden, I get somebody come over here and they go, they sigh and they're like, what's his face isn't here, so need you to deliver, please. That's not in there. And then they go, they're like, there's no problem with that, is there? I'm like, no. They're like, oh, thank God, And I'm like, at this point, like, I'm almost like wanting to go, what the fuck is your problem? But, you know, I'm at work, like, I'm not going to be like that. So I go and I do the deliveries and stuff. I come back and then I hear that clip about, people should be careful. They could have an accident. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Fuck this, man. Like, I have taken all types of shit on the chin and disrespect and fucking side sneak dissing and looks of fucking disgust, whatever, all day today. I was like, but I am not taking no goddamn threats to my fucking health or nothing. I'm like, fuck that. And that's how I left. That's exactly why I left Pizza Hut. And you know what? I kind of enjoyed delivering auto parts, pharmacy things, medicines, and sometimes occasionally food and different things through Lyft, as well as helping deliver people where they need to go. I enjoyed it a lot more than delivering pizzas. But, a job's a job. I think I did about 300 rides in like 5 months. But yeah, and I've got had and still got a 4.8 out of 5.0 star rating. Pretty proud of my rating and stuff. I worked hard on that and ended up meeting a lot of interesting people along the way. But I hope my buddy Rez is doing all right. I miss him. I hope he's doing all right out in flipping Iraq. That dude's all the way out in freaking Iraq, man. Kurdistan to be exact, but technically, it was seen and used to be seen and referred to as Iraq, but it's Kurdish land. I mean, not all of Iraq, but there's a part of Iraq that's technically Kurdistan, whatever. I don't know how it all works out, but Muhammad and them could tell you about it. The Kurdish people are the people Saddam Hussein was persecuting and killing, taking over their land and stuff. You know, they were the non-extremist version of the different sects of Muslims compared to the whatchamacallits, the Shiites, I believe, freaking Arabs and uh, what you call it, Iraqis. I think it's Sunni and Shiites. I want to believe and say, and I could be wrong. I could have these backwards, but I think the Shiites were the extremists, and the Sunnis were the more like Kurdish and different ones. Now, if that's backwards, it's backwards, but one is one and one is the other. Same thing with my Somalian uh, friends that were ladies and their brother, their brothers, their dad. Their dad was one of the most nicest guys ever. Very, very respectful and nice to me. Even though, he knew that I liked his daughter. That you know, he's a very nice guy. And my friend Muhammad's dad, my God, I told some people on the stream, I don't know if all y'all heard it, but he was willing and about to hand my father uh, car keys to I believe it was a Toyota Camry, if not something along those lines, Toyota Camry or what have you, Honda, some Civic. He had key, and he's about to hand them to my dad, and telling us to take his car, use it as long as he needs until he is able to arrange uh, service to come here to the address where Muhammad lives, get his truck fixed on the spot or towed and fixed, and then once it's done, bring his car back, of course, and that's it. Like, I was a little, I was blown away, but my dad was really blown away. He was like, I can't believe he was about to ha- give me his car. Like, you know, I told my dad then, I said, they're not such bad people, are they, Dad, huh? I was like, I guess I would. He's like, no, they're not. He said, um, he said he used to work for the army and government and stuff. He said, I imagine he sees a great difference too in our government and armies and the way they do things versus those Saddams and stuff over there. Yeah. What else did they say here? Let me see. I have no idea why you would brag about something like that. Way before Filthy got sent anything or sent me anything. Who to square blame for doxing him? She said Iceman. No. What the kind of shit is that? Did you just make that up, Deez? Get caught in the bathroom with by Kayla. No, Kayla never caught me in the bathroom with fucking anybody. What the fuck? Where the fuck would that have happened at? My house? Or whose? Muhammad's house with his girlfriend? It definitely wasn't with Muhammad. Muhammad's straight as I am. He's literally fucking Kurdish and is Muslim. Like, don't even try to fucking tell me that you're gonna sit there and project to people and get them to think that Muhammad was gay or something with me. Like, that is fucking insane. If you try to go with that one. My stepfather, no, not my stepfather, the person my mother decided to marry instead of deciding to chop his wiener off or kill him, which definitely, uh, according to her, wholeheartedly did go through her mind for a brief moment of time as she seethed and steamed and stewed over the fact that she is just realizing and discovering this man has a prescription for a medication that is used to help control and combat an outbreak that results and comes from the STD of herpes, and not herpes 1, but herpes 2, which is unlike herpes 1 for life and usually primarily affects sex organs, causes outbreaks, makes you have diminished energy, causes you to get sick a lot easier and have a diminished immune system, and generally fucking takes a lot out of you, more than normal, and causes you to just all around, have a shittier quality of life. And as a result of experiencing, watching my mother go through these things and deal with them, yeah, I made a petition to just, it had nothing to do with fucking Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or anybody. It had to do with the fact that that is the current people in the fucking White House and executive branch of the United States government. Therefore, I was making a petition on whitehouse.gov to them because it'd be kind of silly to make a whitehouse.gov petition to President George or W. Bush or former President Trump or former President Clinton or any of those people when they're not currently in fucking office, right? So I made a petition to the people in currently fucking office at that time. All right? Does that make sense to everybody now? Do you get that? Okay, moving on. I basically demanded that what should happen is people be fucking charged with a goddamn crime, a felony, for fucking intentionally infecting somebody with an STD of any type, whether it be herpes, AIDS, uh, fucking mono, goddamn crabs, gonorrhea. I don't give a fuck what the fuck it is. If they knew that they had it and it wasn't something they could have and it be incubating and not showing any signs or symptoms, if there's no question they knew, be charged. My Mimi is not a nickname for my grandmother. It's not. You could call it a nickname, I guess, but correctly speaking, it was the term. I mean, my grandmother and grandfather Wilson called her Mimi, referred to her as Mimi. Uh, my mom referred to her your Mimi, say your Mimi. You know, it it's just like one of those names. For her true name though was Rose, and middle name was Mary, Mary, and last name was Horton, Horton, I mean. So yeah, that was her name. And there's no need to make fun of the fact that when I say something serious, I swear by my Mimi, because that is very, very serious to me. No, you're not losing your wrench yet. I'm so judgy. I'm so judgy. When we was on the panel, I said she could. That doesn't mean that she can fucking like be fucking kiki with workies and all that. Like, I mean, it is all workies in there. I mean, so you kind of taking things and twisting them a little sly. I didn't say good no matter what, so just go crazy and do everything that fucking would be antagonistic towards me. Like Sugar Nova thinking OMM is a cute little abbreviation for on my Mimi. Here's a little tea. Bambi is on the verge of breaking up with Square again. This is such dumbassness. A lot of people in the chat have been saying and point out, and when they point it out because they are not dumb and they're very aware of my tics and my anxiety. Bambi even pointed it out exactly for what it is, anxiety. and a combination too of having a quick mind that jumps a lot. And when you think of something, especially when you have three or more people on panel and you think of something, guess what? We all start to say something when somebody else at the same time is trying to start in. Because you essentially have to wait for it to be quiet. One person may say something, a couple sentences, and you think they're stopping, and then really they're just taking a breath and they're going to say a few more things, which is fine. Look, I can. I said, you know what? I can take it as constructive criticism, because she talked with me on the back end about it. Um, you know, she thought that I might have gotten slighted and it been thrown back at me that she did it publicly and I wasn't even there really. Um, but it's just like I told her. I said, well, yeah, they tried doing that. They tried bringing it up like you were really, this or that. I said, but I didn't run to try to watch or see. I said, I just waited and was going to ask or talk to you about it later and see. And hold on. What do you say? They're listening to her give some talk about me. Here's the other thing, and this is exactly what I said. It wasn't on purpose every time because I've been busy and I've picked up some extra stuff here lately. Because just like I explained in a post I just made here a while ago, my granddad, despite popular belief, is not able to get hours while being on Medicare and on a pension and retirement from teaching to get hours for a caregiver and home health maker from a relative such as me or anyone else. They don't provide it for people with his type of health plan and retirement. Reason why? He doesn't just get Social Security. Now, if he only got Social Security and was on Medicaid, like most people that are around here, or even had Medicare and Medicaid, but just got Social Security, then he would make a smaller amount of money to the point, maybe then he would qualify and I could get him hours and work for him. But he doesn't because he makes too much money. He makes too much money under their rules, according to the government and whatnot. So therefore, there is no freaking hours provided to him for me to work and collect check for. And I have seen a lot of people get that opportunity to do that, get it, and then they abuse it. They don't actually, really deep clean or even clean halfway decently their relative's house that, gets the hours. And they don't even do, the stuff they report down that they do every day. They don't hardly ever do or shit like that. They just basically collect the check. Yes, I've seen that more than one time. And I've never even gotten that opportunity to abuse it like that. Not that I would have, because my grandfathers or grandmother would have expected me to work. But that's not who I work for. Sorry to burst the person's bubble that made a community post about it. I'm not going to name, but I addressed them in the community post I made as a reply back. I made some long ass posts, and the reason why they're so long is because they're thoroughly, analytically gone over and given the exact reason where there's exact reasons for certain things, and in the other places, it's given you clear, logical, rational explanation why. That way, there's not any question or room for doubt or, benefit of the doubt or whatever. None of that. Oh, Bone Tomahawk, by the way, is a good fucking movie. Random as hell fucking statement, but very true statement. Bone Tomahawk. As well as True Grit. I really did like True Grit and Bone Tomahawk both. Bone Tomahawk, though, is really graphic, deals with some troglodyte, freaking, whatchamacallit, troglodyte, blah, 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 tribe of people, natives, cannibals specifically. But True Grit is about a bounty being hunted over a person that killed this little girl's father, Tom Chaney. Both movies were really, really good. I like the cast of both of them. Got a lot more appreciation, respect, and interest in westerns ever since playing Red Dead 2 and 1. That's for damn sure. But yeah, anything else over here? But essentially, people are saying this about fuck that. Wait, hold on. What do you mean? Wait, when did she say, wait, when did what's her name say anything about slitting your throat? I call cap on that. I wouldn't believe her to say something like that. I'd have to hear that. That's just insane to me. But yeah, as you may have noticed, I don't go on every single panel because I already know this is a tactic for trolls and people that don't like me to use. Oh, he always has to make you mad himself. When you're on a panel and someone is relating or telling off a story or something, if there's anything at all you can think of in your life that's similar in some way, or even that you think so, and you feel the need to share it, or you have the desire to share it, and you choose to share it, and you do, so what? Like, that's not just It's not automatically, oh, they're making it about themselves. That's what people do naturally when they think of something that's relatable. I mean, am I right or am I wrong? I mean, I can't tell. The other night when I was on, I remember her talking about pizza. She was bringing up pizza versus news and stuff, and she called me the weatherman or what have you. So what I was trying to do was I was trying to, whenever there was a moment of no one else interjecting, I was trying to interject with, my little bit about what the weather forecast was and stuff. Like, but I'm sure one time in there or something, uh, right when it was silent though for a second or two, I started in probably right at same time, maybe Miss Harlow or Bambi had was getting ready to take their first breath and start to say something too. That happens. It does happen. Maybe it doesn't have to happen as often. Uh, and if there's a better system to adhere to, like, I don't know, like, what's the word? Well, like, maybe we should always pay attention to the panel, and if somebody unmutes their mic, it's almost like raising your hand, like, "Hey, I'm wanting to speak." Whenever people finish up currently that have the floor, you know. I mean, I don't, I could abide by that, but whenever we do it free-handed, freelance it, basically like off the cuff, whenever we feel like there's space and people have stopped, just because someone stopped, even if it's just been 10 whole seconds, they could just, be reorienting themselves or something, getting ready to still continue on. Um, and I don't want them to feel like, like, oh, well, too slow or there was silence, so I went ahead and went. Like, I don't want to step on them either. Anybody that's like that. Sometimes I'm like that. Sometimes I have to think, I'm trying to think of something, and I don't want to lose the thought. And the thing is that I know that if somebody starts in on something else, my mind will start thinking, relating to whatever that is, and anything related to that category of thought that comes up. And I'll lose my original train of thought that I was trying to regain and find and hold. So, I mean, I understand. And I don't want to do that to anybody either, because I know what it's like. It fucking gets on your nerves. You can't fucking remember what you wanted to talk about. And some people smart assly say, well, it must not have been important. That's the most dumbest thing I've ever heard. The mind is like the mind is a constant force. It's like a magnet, and at the same time, it's like a flash. It's like a light that illuminates. Alright, guys, sorry about that. Um, having issues with the connectivity and the mic issue. Let me see, it's some bunch of stupid comments, it looks like. Get out of here, Gustavo. I'm a little disappointed. Andrea, like, I'm not gonna cause issues with Andrea. I'll still let her be over here, but, like, I'm gonna double think about ever letting you guys on panel if you're just gonna go off on another panel and go with whatever and trash. I mean, there was a lot of things in there that technically, chronologically got correct that weren't significant, like package and different things of that nature. But crying was off. Uh, wasn't because of Cammy or over rent. It was because of Cammy's threat of fucking using Scooter and other people to turn me into Johnny Goble, which goes to show you that I wasn't okay or cool or wanting that to begin with, even though people try to lie and say, oh, he loves it for attention. Moving on. Um, what else was incorrect? Pizza Hut manager running me off. Not the case. Other way around. Pizza Hut manager coming after me because they pissed off. They didn't like what I had to say because it was factually correct and put them in their place. What else? Kayla and I go on Scientology. That is true, but she wasn't left out there in a fucking dumpster or nothing to eat out of. That is fucking bunch of balderdash, as L. Ron Hubbard would say. It's a bunch of creativity, liberty on her part, trying to make it sound worse. What else was wrong? Anything correct or wrong? Recognize. Roundabout was correct. Transformers, they keep saying that Dad, they keep trying to talk about the guy that they pretended to be Buddy, or one of them pretended to be me on the dating apps. Talk to the guy around here that was bi, whose actual name we'll just call what was his name? Oh yeah, I remember now. We'll nickname him to be Joseph. Well, Joseph came by and I just could recognize his face, remember him from school, and asked him what he's doing here and stuff. And he's like, "Haven't you been texting me? You've been texting me, right?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And from then on, I realized pretty soon that the trolls reached out to him and stuff, and I apologized to him and I said, "Dude, wherever you found them pretending to be me at, I don't even belong on." I was like, because I tell you what, I said, I haven't dated or even attempted to try to date ever since pretty much here a couple years back, whenever I was with somebody and they lied and they technically were still married and living with that person. And they fucking me and shit. And, then I get into a big old controversy and all types of shit and have to deal with police. So I haven't been dating. So I was like, I ain't belong on there. I said, but you drove all the way over here. I said, do you smoke? I was like, I got some smoke. I was like, let me roll us up one and we'll smoke. And so he came back here into the room. Yeah. And pretty much sat in my computer chair or stood up around and waited while I rolled. Then we went outside. I smoked with him, and I seen how he'd been and everything. Made conversation. My granddad said a few things to him, asked about his relatives because he was from close to around the area where we go to church. So my granddad knew some of his people, vice versa. He then said, appreciate it. and apologized to him again for getting drug into my crap with people on the internet, and he left. That's it. Now, the way they tell it, he came back here in the room, and apparently we had gay sex, because apparently to them I'm gay, even though they've fucking have talked to an ex-wife and they've brought up my ex-girlfriend Brandy. They've brought up the girl I've been with that dealt with issue here, who had the still husband married that abused her, made her report me for that bullshit. They know about the other chick down in Memphis I was with. They know about the chicks in Nashville I've been with. Fuck. They know about Marquette. Hell, like, I mean, how many women do you need to verifiably know that I've been with before you accept the fact that I am not gay? I mean, good God Almighty. Hell, it's not a note. And that is not true. I hadn't spoken to corporate yet, ding dong. It was a franchise, and they were only under management not too far away, actually pretty locally geographically. It wasn't even a store. It wasn't a store that was ran or underneath a corporate umbrella of Pizza Hut somewhere far off. It was a food franchise management company that was a county over or some shit, pretty much. And I hadn't even reached out to them yet. I was letting him know that I guess I was going to have to. That is why he got pissed off and followed from behind me as I made my way outside. I was off work at that point. I was not going to stay. Hell, even if I was still on the clock and had an hour left, I was leaving at that point. But luckily, I made it till my time was ending because I wanted to do it exactly right. So you got your assumption wrong there. I didn't take advantage of no two women. Here we go yet again. One woman I dated in Nashville, she was not a Lyft. Uh, she was not a current and always a Lyft passenger. When you work for Lyft, you are a contractor. There's, no agreement signed saying that you can never fraternize or associate with a person you may have picked up or ever given a ride before. And there's nothing that can control or keep you from end up being a coworker of theirs or meeting them on a dating app or anything like that. Well, um, she pretty much was forward with me and asked me what I was doing because I was in town temporarily. We ended up going on out on a date later when I got done working, and I ended up hanging out and staying at her place. Just pretty much like as a fling, but whatever. That's all it was. Um, Pretty sure that she accepted that as much as I did, and didn't expect anything else, just like I didn't. Other person, again, not a, like, you think that I'm number one, if I were to give somebody a ride and take advantage of, like, so I would also then be also taking advantage of them monetarily because all of that extra time and having to be stopped and going to the destination is going to add more of a fare to the the fucking the ride. So it doesn't even make sense what you're saying. Have you seen all the also stories of people that have hell, I just seen one earlier today advertised of a Uber driver taking advantage of somebody and is fucking facing life, which he should, you know. But look, I'm not trying to ever act like I'm some fucking stud, because I know I'm not, but I'm not so down in confidence or whatever, or feel like I'm ugly to the point that I turn myself off from any possible experience of, you know, being with somebody. Like, I freaking have been with somebody my same age as range as fucking mother, you know. Granted, very intoxicated myself. I'm not speaking for the other person wouldn't. But and she wasn't taking advantage of me either. I mean, I was fucking 19. Uh, technically, technically, her son was 17. He's a little younger than me, but damn near same age group. I mean, we were hanging out with another guy and gal, but I was over at a dude's house that ended up poisoning me that time, the night that I tried to take my life a couple years later down the road. We was at his house at the time, and he left to go do something or another. I was just sitting there, kind of climbing the walls, so to speak. I was a little fucked up, kind of disassociating a little bit, and she just comes on to me straight up. Like, I couldn't have predicted that. I didn't influence it. I didn't reject it either. But I mean, you know, just it is what it is. But yeah, to have all those things happen, and you know, if I had done any time and anyone something to be, uh, shamed of, guilty, what have you, I wouldn't share the stories. I mean, to be able to share something of a story, and all along, trolls saying, "Oh, you're not telling the whole thing, guilty of something, blah 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 blah," making up their own version to it, and then I'm still able to recant, or recant the experience, like retell it, not change anything, because I've only got one thing to remember, and that's to recall the truth and tell it again and again, and be able to, and have no qualms, and don't change the subject or anything, because I secretly know, or somehow feel bad because I know that I'm wrong of something. Like, if that was the case, that's what I would do. But I don't. I go over it with you, and I tell you, and I recall it again, and I address your bullshit comments of lying and saying that this happened with Lyft or whatever else. Or I could just as easily blog, delete, move on to something else. I don't do that. But yet, apparently, you say that, well, if it was, don't you think I would do something different? You know, I mean, that'd have to be a completely true, off the scales, like, would have appeared on the psychiatrist evaluating me during those 30 days radar and longer, the other 2 week session too, and the most recent one from the internet trolls is 5150. All those times, don't you think that if I was able to do stuff like that, which would be coldly psychopathic, sociopathic, one of those or the other, don't you think they would have seen it, diagnosed me with some form of antisocial personality disorder? I mean, I think so, but maybe I'm just that good at hiding it. I mean, come on, fucking catch a break. Get a grip. I mean, not catch a break, get a grip. Ticks. What are you talking about? No, that's not true. He wasn't dead no 3 days before anybody found him. That is an exaggeration here yet again. Might have been at the most like 24 hours or so. But here's the other thing that you also forget to clue in and care to understand. The person that came by that was in charge, I never did do a few certain activities for him. Reason being, he had somebody for those activities that his family used to use their mother before, and now he continued the tradition by using her. So there was a woman, a African American woman, that performed some of the house and delicate like laundry, stuff like that work. Now I would occasionally go and get stuff that was dry cleaned or what different things, but she would do the regular normal um bed stuff and regularly done laundry and whatnot. She was in charge of certain things during those days. I wasn't working. I was not working. At the time, I didn't have a car, first of all, and my granddad, he didn't work, but my granddad has always been a busy person when it comes to family and different young people and different stuff. And sometimes, like my nephews, it's not any y'all's business, but my nephews and stuff sometimes doesn't get certain people that are that involved with him in sports and stuff. And my grandpa always has been, so he takes stuff up and time up with that. He can't always be without a car, and my Saul was not gonna insist that I freaking deprive him or try to take his car and be there all the time. So he gave me a couple days off. See that y'all don't give a rat's ass, and you fail to acknowledge the simple and obvious truth that if I'm working for another human being that pays me out of his own pocket, dime, checkbook, guess what? Any contractual expectations, oral or written, otherwise, can be changed, modified, altered, and agreed upon, and affixed to the certain circumstances and situations anytime we so needed as a partnership, contractorship, the way we worked. Client, caregiver, employer, employee. We wasn't under no home office or no corporate fucking caregiving healthcare organization. That means if I needed to be there every day, 24 hours a day, I was there. Like when he broke his fucking hip or his fucking foot the very first time, his ankle, I mean. If I didn't need to be there but 3 times a week, I'd go 3 times a week. If I went every other day, I went every other day. If I went every day, I went every day. Hell, if he wanted to just let me come friggin' once a week, he could technically. Be insane though and kind of unfair considering what he paid me, but still, I'm just saying that's the beauty and the freedom of fucking working for somebody privately. The mind's the limit of what y'all decide on what's cool, what can happen, what cannot happen, what you're cool with doing, what all that stuff. my grandfather, and my neighbor's financial situation. Um, well, when you live around older folks that talk a lot and aren't afraid to share stuff and tell the truth of things because they're old and they're getting tired of life and all it's got to throw at you, yeah, you tend to fucking know some things. You're starting to tell the truth on this pervert. Yeah, Greg Davis, you wouldn't know truth if it bit you in the face. And I'm not a pervert. That's slander. Defamation of character, my friend. He's not talking about when he abandoned his wife. Oh my fucking god. It's not an abandonation. Do you realize if you're married to somebody and you go out somewhere with them on an idea for y'all to start a life somewhere new, guess what? If you get cold feet later on or think you've made the wrong decision and you joined a fucking cult and this is not going to help you grow and it's extremely limiting considering the fact you only got paid $50 a week, and that's if you even fucking got paid, because worse comes to worse and it happened all the time and there's stories in the Sea Org of weeks of people not getting paid, weeks and weeks and weeks. Why? Who fucking knows? But they don't pay you sometimes. Alright? You get fed 3 square meals a day and do have access to water at the very least. And I think even basic tea, like sweet tea and shit. So, anyways, she had food. I guarantee you, as long as she was there in that building and didn't run off or some crazy shit, which she was able to call me and figure out the flight details, and they dropped her off there, so it seems to me like she didn't run away from there. She got fed 3 square meals a fucking day, and then when she got dropped off at the airport, I guarantee she at least had the chance to get breakfast that morning, and then maybe in between breakfast and waiting for the flight, she didn't eat. On the flight, she got to get some snacks. Off the flight, she probably had to wait a bit until I got up there to get her, and then she got to eat again. So, all in all, she went maybe 8 total hours of not being able to eat, except some snacks here and there. Maybe not, more like 6 hours of not being able to eat except snacks here and there and water probably, complimentary and shit on the plane, and you're going to tell me she fucking starved to the point she had to eat out of a trash can? I call bull motherfucking shit. Hid in the trunk of a car to spy on his wife. How the fuck does that work? Let me ask you something. If I were to hide in the trunk of a car, let's say I did, and my wife was inside that car, is she in the back seat? Is that how I'm magically supposed to be able to listen and procure every word or conversation in a car? What if the music's on? What if she's in the front seat? How in the fuck do you think me in the back of the trunk of a car guarantees I can spy on my wife and that all the variables are going to work out perfect to where I can hear every single fucking phrase or word uttered in that fucking trunk? And then not be revealed. The other people in the car in on it have to be, obviously, and otherwise for me to be able to hear and then purposefully keep the music off, and they not tell her ever or betray me because they might want to tap her ass or something and move in on me. Like, you make no fucking sense. You really don't. Because while I had friends, I'm sure then, I never had any friends that I would trust that much. Sorry. I never, ever, ever, ever bragged about that or having anything such as that at all. I showed a fucking Facebook flash on my computer screen from my photo albums on Facebook, which are uploaded and viewable to every person on my friends list, which is a sizable friends list, like way over 1,000 friends have access to those photo albums. Not friends of friends, not anybody in public, because it's privatized, but at least all of my added verified friends have access to them. And don't you believe that, like, you're insane to say that with a straight face in chat like that. Because the picture or the preview of the picture in the photo album of pictures you're referring to is a photo of my nephew in a red shirt at a birthday party. He has short, dark khaki style, like cargo-ish shorts on that you are not able to fucking tell from the preview of the photo and stuff. And he is blowing out candles in one of the videos. Clearly, you can see the shorts there, because guess what? I'm down, like, with one knee on the ground practically, or on a chair, trying to get down to their level to get the shit on video. And then there's other pictures and video of him opening presents I got him, Transformer presents, and him giving me a hug. And then there's other kids pictured, and parents, and my granddad, and the other kids' parents and shit. And you're going to tell me that somehow those photographs were the videos I took, any way and all, that that stuff is somehow inappropriate, illegal, CP, as you termed it. You, you're going to sit there with a straight face and say that. Because I'd have to be the dumbest, most idiotic criminal to post that stuff on my, even though private, but still with a lot of friends, Facebook, where they can see it, and then to flash it on a live stream where it can be screenshotted and seen and observed on a live stream. Like, and then still be out walking the streets around like nothing happened. Like, I don't know. I'd have to be really connected. Every time his grandfather says, "Son, you want to go to church?" He says no. 3 years, always no. That is complete bullshit. What the hell are you talking about? That is such a lie. While it's true, I don't go to church every Sunday. I don't. I don't. But you have to understand too that, my religion and my religious and spiritual views are none of your fucking business. And they differ in some respects to my grandfather's. Not in the overall aspect, they don't. Overall, we agree on all important points. But still, um, that's none of your business. But no, that's complete horseshit. Because number one, that's one of the activities I can do with my grandfather where, like, it really don't cost us anything. We get to go out to eat afterwards. And you forget, my grandparents raised me in that church. There's a bunch of older people that have been a part of my raising and growing up in that church, witnessed my baptism, witnessed me being saved and becoming a member of the church. Also, witnessed and been with me when we went camping, all of our families going to the same campground. Been with me at church camp, watched and seen when I professed my profession of faith, and repented and went to Mr. D for advice on the feelings I was having and how they relate to God. Like it, you know, all those people are special to me. So don't be saying that I don't go to my home because that's just dumb. Because that's like another home for me. This church, there's nothing but family there. I tell you this, like I've never felt like not being able to go to church. So that's sometimes if I wanted to or felt in the mood to, no, I haven't. Most straight men don't spend so much time there since others there are not gay. I haven't spent all that time. I'm pointing out the fucking obvious because of most straight and well balanced people also don't project the fact that they think somebody is gay or whatever onto another person and lie about people they've been with and say they're transformers when they're not. I could also pull that card right back on you. When I'm not lying, he's making an excuse. Okay. Well, it's convenient to call things excuses when they're actual legitimate fucking facts or reasons. But I mean, you can label, you know, you're labeling it by a category. You're saying it's in a category of excuses. Well, what if it's also under the category of truth and facts? You're hoping that, you're using excuses in the term of essentially trying to point and get people to assume without actually saying it yourself, like excuses to avoid responsibility on something when that's not the case at all. Not been avoiding any responsibility on things, but if we're going to talk about any specific situations and people don't get all of the points or facts or details out there, they need to be addressed. Otherwise, it would be unfair and not accurate or a justice to talk about something and leave out important stuff. Don't you think so? Basically, the guy was saying you raped two women. Yeah. And you know what? I could say you raped four. I could say he raped six. And y'all say I raped two. Here's the thing. I need to make my proof on y'all two, and y'all need to make your proof on me. All right? Pretended. That's not true at all. And my mom didn't turn tricks in a fucking motel. My mom didn't have to turn tricks. Stupid. My mom was with one guy that gave her an incurable disease. One man. But y'all like to, but because she had an incurable disease that I've said, you try to use the fact that people will hear that and then hear you say, oh, she turned tricks was a prostitute. Well, it makes sense. She has an incurable disease. But that's not at all the accuracy once again. My mom worked and managed hotels. She didn't turn tricks. It'd be really hard to do that at a motel that you're managing and in charge of, especially when you don't own it. Now, if my mom had owned the hotels, that'd be plausible because she'd have no one to answer to. But how are you going to say my mom, who worked for people that regularly popped up surprised and sent people to check and stuff on their property in the care of her, how the fuck are you going to say she was turning tricks and being able to get by with it? And nobody spread that shit to nobody or the managers. And I must have found out or knew about it and been okay with it, right? Are you fucking kidding me? I think even Kayla gave him ammo to try to go along with that because once me and Kayla stayed to help by working for and helping my mother take care of a motel. All right? We did. We cleaned rooms and did all that stuff. But my mom was married. She was not turning tricks. Especially at her age, and especially with the fucking disease she got in 2000 and fucking two. Fucking idiots. Pretended like I cut myself up. I did cut myself up. I tried to fucking kill myself, and it all had to do with because I had a fucking amphetamine goddamn psychosis reaction. Period. End of story. I share these stories trying to convince people I'm not a sexual pervert. Okay, sure. Freudian slip about what? Mentally ill. Well, see, mentally ill can mean a bunch of things, and it depends on who you're asking and what context they're using. Do I have mental illness, as in, do I have an illness of the mind or the brain, more accurately, that is related to the mental functioning or faculties thereof? Yes, I do. I have major depressive disorder, and I have generalized anxiety disorder, and then I have fucking complex PTSD, CPTSD. There you go. So, looky there. That's called self-acceptance. I'm not in denial. Never have been. I don't know where you get that from. Never heard about the African American woman. This is a brand new story. Never heard about the African American. Brand new story, huh? When I was in Memphis, you mean I didn't talk about the obvious African American chick I was with that was older than me in Memphis when I was down there working for a while on Lyft, and I stayed at a hotel, and she stayed there with me. But you don't remember that? Okay, okie dokie. Basically, I can get all off up in their checkbook and bank account. No, because banks are familiar with people's signatures and stuff. So, no, not unless they put me on there, which they didn't. I'll tell you what one of them did do, though. When they passed away, they waited and had it set up so that sometime after they passed away, I got a phone call from a bank that they had money in, and there was basically instructions set for money in an account to go directly to me after a specific amount of time had passed after they died, and that's exactly what happened. And I didn't expect it. I wasn't told about it, and I was grateful. And I gave a good amount to my grandfather because anytime he's gotten money paid out to him, a little bit in a lump sum here or there, or gotten this or gotten that, or the times I've needed vehicles, tires, whatever I needed for my life, and I came up short or I needed help to go along with it, or if I was flat broke, he was there. So why wouldn't I? They kicked me out and kept my wife, and he left her. It's pretty bad, even when a cult won't allow you to hang around. They didn't kick me out, buddy. They wanted me there. They considered me to be a good mark if they had me recruited because I scored high on their little personality test and on their fucking IQ test. I'm surprised they didn't come at me like that, like Stan in the South Park episode, and say he's reincarnated of L. Ron Hubbard. You know, Saul did not break his hip and then die. Saul broke his hip and then was taken to me with by me, which I carried him to his car, and then I took him to the hospital And then we went down to Arkansas's bigger hospital down in the state of Arkansas. And he stayed there after they operated and all different things. Then we came back to Kennett, and then he was housed at the nursing home for a little bit. And while he was, I was house sitting. And while house sitting, I was allowed to smoke in his house. Yes, that's right. He allowed me to smoke in his home. Uh, well, it was actually originally his uncle and aunts, and they smoked there. There was ashtrays in the house, for Christ's sake. But anyways, he let me smoke there. And I don't mean just cigarettes, you know. And so I was smoking there. And I left to go get things. And when I went to where I did, to that one guy with the mom that I was with, you know, I got that couple those capsules, and one of them was tainted. One of them had fucking amphetamines. I took them all, including the one with amphetamines, and that shit slowly cooked in my system. It hit me. I started spinning, and I fucking snapped. I mean, I broke in reality. I was real depressed. A lot of things flooded my mind I was thinking about. So I tried to kill myself, you know, and I called for help. Ambulance came, my grandfather came, and I was driven to my hospital in Hayti. The whole way over there, I kept trying to get warm because it was so cold. I was in practically nothing but a t-shirt and stuff, and my wounds were, open from where I cut myself, and there was dirt from the basement floor and dust and stuff all over me and in the wounds. And I was just burning. My wounds were on fire from the, dirt and stuff. And they had to keep me up as long as they could while they tried to clean my wounds the best they could. And then finally, after so much begging, they finally put me to sleep and, sent me into surgery and all that. And I remember waking up and fuck, my whole neck was covered with bandages. My arms were covered with bandages. One of my legs was covered. I looked like Raggedy Ann. I was fucked up. Yeah, she didn't though. You keep lying about it though. She went a whole couple hours in between flying from LA to Missouri and only had access to fucking peanuts and crackers and fucking probably some cookies on the airplane. Or a trail mix. What a fucking tragedy. You are so right. I'm so sorry. I should have fucking made sure to magically by carrier pigeon have a fucking credit card flown out to her while she was in LA before she got on the plane, so she could have ordered whatever her heart contended while she was on the airplane. You are so fucking right. Give me a fucking break, dude. Kiss my ass, why don't you? I told her back when I left and wanted to leave, and and they started to break us apart and shit, and put her in isolation, which should have fucking gave her a clue. Guess what? She should have fucking said, "Yeah, maybe you're right. Well, if you're going, I'm going. I don't want to be here alone." No, but she stayed, and she had every right to stay, and I had every right to leave. Just 'cause you're married to somebody fucking don't mean you're conjoined at the hip. If one of them wants to leave somewhere and the other one don't, guess what? They either compromise and leave together later or sometime, or they split. Oh my God. Still thinking I'm listening to somebody and you're mad. I'm mad because I couldn't hear. No, I'm just a little irritated that you fucking keep thinking that that is something that I would actually think about. And logically, you have to realize, like, a lot of things have to go right for that to even work, and that's assuming it could. and then do it, and it's just dumb. Everybody has seen the if everybody has seen it, then you need to admit that everybody has seen nothing but a picture at a party of people and a younger person. Otherwise, you're trying to say you've all seen CP, which is just nuts and would be in and of itself illegal whether or not you downloaded it. If you went out to actually look at what was supposedly rumored to be CP and you're still trying to say that it is, well then, buddy, we're all going to jail. Yeah, with pants, you mean. Keep lying. I'm not talking about the wrong picture. And yes, there was video. There was more than just photographs in that album. There was a fucking mobile video. I'm pretty sure I fucking went through it when I debunked the shit. I make it everybody's business by bragging about being 1% Jewish. Nobody ever said they were 1% Jewish. No, you're right. But somebody might have been baptized that then later decided to turn to the fucking convert to Messianic Judaism. Dumb dumb. Especially when they were raised by default Baptists and didn't have a say in it. No, there's not a synagogue locally around here. So unless I were to create one, I'm pretty much stuck with having to go to a regular Christian church, which is not something that's impossible to do, even if you observe and subscribe to newer, different beliefs than what that church represents and promotes. Again, the overall picture is what's important on that. Somebody gives you a bunch of money, how do you end up flat broke? Well, here's the thing. You might think that it was a bunch of money, but in this economy and everything, and over the fact that I needed to give some money to my family, which I did, and I had to spend a lot of the money because things were needed to get done. Guess what? It wasn't a lot of money. It's mind fart. See, you don't even know what you're talking about, dude. Your heart is connected to the blood vessels that run through all your body, including your fucking legs, you dumbass. Self-mutilation just to get pharmaceuticals, you think? Okay, sure. Yeah, that's why at the time, though, I wasn't even on anything other than kratom and smoking weed, right? Right? That I was doing it to get pharmaceuticals. How the fuck does that work, you dumbass? I was on crack. It's not that I wouldn't have gotten or taken anything at the time, because I would have. I was in active addiction. But at the time, though, I was able to control myself from getting sick and make it through the days without, you know, like drugs, like besides kratom, which technically, once it goes through your system and converts and metabolizes, it becomes a chemical substance called mitragynine, which technically is a opioid receptor antagonist, which could considerably be called a drug once it gets to that molecular stage, what have you. However, it's not a pill or drug in the normal historical sense. Not like you can snort the shit. You can only take it one way, ingest it. We'll take it by liquid. It's early as fuck. I've been on here for 3 hours. I'm getting off. Y'all have a good evening. Y'all have proven how stupid you are, and you seem to overplay events and things when people just simply may have, it's all right though. I mean, that's what you trolls do. But it's a good thing, I'm not anything like I used to be, and things were overblown as usual because all it required was a simple fucking, uh, reconnecting with certain people and to figure out what the deal was, what the actual whole, uh, you know, basically what was thought up and why, and to listen to the person, which I did, and I listened to what some of the things that were said and brought up by other people and stuff. Listened to it wholeheartedly and said okie dokie. Cause guess what? While listening, straight up, somebody straight up gave, like, they actually answered one of the questions they had said a few sentences previously. So yeah, there's nothing to worry about there. But just know that because of the troll, because see, if I'm there, if I'm somewhere every time, and I'm making it about me, I'm hiding underneath somebody, behind them, whatever bullshit they come up with to try to spin. I'm not there hardly ever though. Again, I'm a fake. I just use them for a certain benefit. Da 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 da. So I got to strike a balance. So don't fret and don't start spreading and wondering, spreading rumors just because you don't see me somewhere every fucking time. You know, because obviously you can't always be at someone's live every time, and don't always want to be, and I'm sure that they would like sometimes a change up of things as well every now and then. It's just natural, Everybody's like that. Hell, I'm like that. So, anyways, see you later. Peace. Yeah, that never happened. You mean when I was at home and asleep, and because of what her ex-husband told her, which was not even the full fucking scope of things. She drove home mad, seething, and thinking about what she was gonna do to the point when she got there, she had a mental fucking breakdown and threw stuff down the stairs, which is property destruction, as well as cussed me out and everything else, and then told me to go ahead and get out, and my stuff is spread all over the floor and shit, and I need to grab it as well as find my phone. And I simply said, "Sure thing. I just got to get my stuff in my phone, and I'll be out, find it, and I'll be out of here." She said, "Nope, you're getting out of here now," and pointed the gun at me. And then I went next door and I called the police. And they came and they allowed me to get my stuff, find my phone, and leave, thankfully. And then I went and I stayed at a friend's house for the last 2 weeks and the last bit of December and that part of the year, and finished up my job at Sudsy's car wash, gave a 2 week notice, worked, collected the check, and then got my car gassed and drove home back to Missouri. That's what I did. I didn't have to break in what happened to my dad's house at all. Her ex-husband's house, when me and the person I babysitted went there, he could not remember where the hidden key was for the front door. Well, we parked in the back. As we went back into the back towards my car, and it was snowing and not good weather, I noticed that the back door only had a small or a bottom knob, and therefore no deadbolt. So I knew that with a little plastic card from my wallet, I could be able to get us in if I had to. We still attempted to try to find the key. because that's not normal or proper, but it was a possibility. And the only reason I knew that was because I learned it from somebody in my family when we were locked out somewhere one time. So it wasn't because I fucking used it as a trick to fucking break and enter some places and get away with it like I was some master thief. We even told, and I made sure to tell him, we gotta let your father know how we got in here, and I did. But he didn't explain all the nuances of why. Obviously, I did it, or because even though I fucking straight up told him, he just told her what happened, almost like, like I did it, not giving a shit. And she just got mad as fuck over it. Nothing was missing, nothing was stolen. I mean, and it's not like the dude was broke or anything. He had a house full of stuff. His son had stuff and play, and I just only took him there so he could get his game system. We could play it a little bit there, which we did. The storm and stuff, it finally stopped snowing. And then once all that was done, he packed up his game system. By then, his dad had returned home. I informed his dad, look, we had to get in this way. We couldn't get a hold of you on the phone, and he couldn't remember where the key was. And he said, oh, it's all right. He didn't fucking get mad and say, what the fuck are you doing breaking in my house? No, no, no. He let me leave, right? And then I leave and I go home, and then 2, 3 hours later, she leaves and gets off work and comes home, and he calls her up apparently and tells her everything, and she fucking goes apeshit. So go fucking figure. All right, good night or good morning. Peace. I got shit to do.